Have you ever wondered why the very food God called the staff of life, the bread he broke at the Last Supper to represent his own body, has now become something doctors warn is the enemy of the gut, a root cause of inflammation, and a nightmare for millions of Americans with gluten sensitivity? In the ancient world, bread was a symbol of pure authenticity. It sustained empires, fueled prophets across the desert, and served as the cornerstone of human health for 10,000 years. Back then, a loaf of bread required just 4 ingredients: seed from the earth, water from the sky, salt from the sea, and time from the Creator. Today, the loaf of bread in your hands contains up to 30 ingredients, half of which are born in chemical laboratories rather than from Mother Earth. We are essentially holding a business model disguised as a loaf of bread. It is no longer food. It is an industrial product designed to maximize profit and minimize vitality. When we break a piece of modern bread, we aren't just consuming starch. We are ingesting a chain of genetic modifications, chemical residues, and the results of a manufacturing process that has killed off every precious enzyme. The staff of life has been broken, and in its place, humanity is now leaning on a rotting crutch of disease. The story you are about to hear isn't just about nutrition. It is a historical cold case, a betrayal of the Creator's design. Together, we will travel back in time to uncover who swapped out the sacred seed, who destroyed the very soul of the wheat, and most importantly, how we can reclaim real bread, the food that brings life instead of destruction. If you are deeply concerned about your family's health and want to uncover the truth behind what we eat every day, hit the like button on this video right now. Share it with your loved ones, and don't forget to drop a comment saying, "I want to reclaim real bread," so we can embark on this journey together. Close your eyes and imagine the wheat fields of Galilee or the vast plains of Judea 2,000 years ago. These were not the short, uniform, and monotonous wheat fields we see today. The wheat of Abraham, of King David, and of Jesus were absolute giants. They went by ancient names like einkorn, emmer, and spelt. These stalks of wheat grew taller than a man, their sturdy stems swaying in the wind like warriors guarding life itself. The greatest difference, however, didn't lie in their height, but deep within their genetic code, something the Creator designed perfectly. Einkorn wheat, the most primal seed, carried only 14 chromosomes. Emmer wheat had 28. Compare that to the 42 chromosomes found in modern wheat. Why does this number matter? In nature's design, simplicity is purity. With just 14 chromosomes, the protein, gluten structure of ancient wheat was incredibly simple and fragile. Upon entering the human stomach, our digestive system easily recognized it, broke it down rapidly, and absorbed every ounce of its nutritional essence. Look at Ruth, the Moabite woman in the Bible, as she gleaned wheat in the fields of Boaz. The grains she cherished contained 50% more protein than today's wheat, along with a treasure trove of minerals like zinc, iron, and manganese. That was the kind of food that built strong bones and sharp minds. Modern dwarf wheat, on the other hand, is a monstrous creation born out of complex laboratory crossbreeding. It possesses an incredibly stubborn and aggressive gluten structure, something the human body was never programmed to digest. We are essentially trying to run outdated software, our ancient digestive system, to read a corrupted, overly complex file, modern wheat. And the result, as we have seen, is a system crash. A pandemic of chronic inflammation erupting within the bodies of an entire generation. For thousands of years, the sound of life in every village was the steady rumble of the stone mill. From ancient Egypt to the humble homes of Bethlehem, wheat grains were always ground between two rough-hewn stones. This process was slow and arduous, but it preserved the entire life force of the grain. As the stones ground the wheat, they mixed the germ, the powerhouse of living oils and vitamins, and the fiber-rich bran right into the white endosperm. The result was a creamy yellow flour, carrying the deep, earthy aroma of Mother Nature and packed with the enzymes needed to aid digestion. But then, in the 1870s, the dark shadow of the Industrial Revolution fell upon the grist mills. The steel roller mill was born. These cold steel rollers could spin at breakneck speeds, but they didn't grind the wheat, they dissected it. Food tycoons realized that by stripping away the germ and the bran, the flour became stark white, and most importantly, could sit on grocery store shelves for years without spoiling. Why? Because the precious oils in the germ oxidize quickly, and insects know that's where the most vibrant life is concentrated, so they naturally flock to it. In exchange for profit and convenience, humanity decided to kill the flour before it ever reached the oven. The steel mills stripped away the very soul of the wheat, the living germ packed with vitamin E and essential fatty acids. What remained was nothing but a pile of stark white, nutrient-bankrupt, lifeless starch. Jesus once said, "Two women will be grinding with a hand mill. One will be taken, and the other left." That image of the hand mill is a symbol of the profound connection between human hands and the Creator's provision. When we replaced the stone mill with lifeless steel rollers, we severed that connection, leaving our descendants with a soulless flour, one that no longer has the power to nourish, but only to stuff a hungry belly. There is a heartbreaking paradox unfolding in America right now. Thousands of people with severe wheat sensitivities find themselves freely enjoying bread, pasta, and pizza when vacationing in Italy or France, only to suffer immediate bloating and inflammation the moment they return home. Why is this? Is European gluten somehow gentler than American gluten? Not exactly. The answer lies in a toxic chemical that the American agricultural industry has been hiding for decades. Glyphosate, the active ingredient in the weed killer Roundup. In the Creator's original design, the harvest season was a time of joy and purity, when the wheat stalks dried naturally beneath the sun. But in modern American industrial agriculture, time is money. To harvest faster and more uniformly, mega farmers have adopted a ruthless practice known as pre-harvest desiccation. They spray glyphosate directly onto the still green wheat fields right before the harvest. This toxin kills the wheat plant instantly, forcing it to dry out rapidly so the combines can get to work sooner. When you eat a slice of industrial bread in America, you aren't just eating wheat, you are eating herbicide residue. Glyphosate isn't merely the enemy of weeds, it is the destroyer of the human gut microbiome. It decimates the beneficial bacteria God placed in our guts to protect our immune systems. Many people think they are allergic to gluten, but in reality, their bodies are screaming out from chemical poisoning. We have turned the golden fields of life into chemical battlegrounds. How can we expect to receive a blessing from a grain that has been drenched in poison before it even leaves the field? This is the ultimate insult to the sanctity of food. In every home in the Holy Land thousands of years ago, a treasure sat quietly in a corner of the kitchen, a clay jar of leaven. This wasn't the commercial dry yeast you buy in supermarkets today. It was sourdough, a vibrant, living community of probiotics and wild yeast drawn from the very air. The Bible often uses leaven metaphorically, but biologically speaking, ancient leaven was a pre-digestion factory that God bestowed upon humanity. The ancient bread-making process was never rushed. A Jewish woman would mix flour with water and a bit of starter from the previous day's batch, and then she let it rest. They allowed it to ferment for 12, 18, or even 24 hours. During that quiet time, a miracle of biological alchemy took place. Lactic acid bacteria began to feed on the sugars, breaking down the complex gluten structures. They essentially did the digestive work for our stomachs. More importantly, this long fermentation process neutralized phytic acid, a compound found in wheat bran, often called the mineral thief, because it blocks the body from absorbing iron and zinc. Today, for the sake of profit, commercial bakeries have murdered time. They use commercial yeast to force bread to rise in just 1 hour. With zero fermentation time, the gluten retains its full aggression, and the phytic acid retains its full toxicity. Modern bread is like a ticking time bomb for the gut. When Jesus spoke of the leaven of the Pharisees, he was warning of hidden corruption. But when we look at ancient bread leaven, we see a sacred patience. The time spent baking isn't wasted waiting. It is a transformation from the seed of the earth into the bread of life, where all toxicity is stripped away and every nutrient is unlocked. Picture the 1950s and 1960s, a time when the world was teetering on the brink of global famine. The population was exploding, and the towering ancient wheat fields could no longer yield enough food. Amidst this urgency, a scientist named Norman Borlaug stepped forward. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for sparking the Green Revolution, saving billions of people from starvation. His intentions were pure, but the price paid for survival in quantity was a devastating decline in genetic quality. Borlaug created semi-dwarf wheat. These wheat plants were no longer taller than a man reaching for the sun. Instead, they were short and rigid, engineered to carry heavy heads of grain without snapping. To feed these artificial organisms, massive amounts of chemical fertilizers had to be poured into the soil. Modern wheat is no longer purely a product of the earth and sun. It is a product of petroleum and the laboratory. But there was a secret that scientists of the time overlooked. When they altered the height of the wheat plant, they fundamentally altered its deep protein structure. The Bible says, "Man shall not live on bread alone." But if that bread is no longer what was originally designed, what exactly is it nourishing? Modern dwarf wheat contains a type of starch called amylopectin A, something that spikes blood sugar even faster than table sugar. We solved the hunger of the stomach, but inadvertently created a new kind of famine, a cellular famine, sparking an epidemic of diabetes and obesity across America. We multiplied the loaves for the 5,000, but not through the miracle of love, rather through the coercion of genetic engineering. If you pick up a loaf of bread in an American supermarket, you will likely see the flashy words, "enriched flour." It sounds like a blessing, but the truth is far more painful. Imagine a thief breaking into your home, stealing all your jewelry, money, and priceless heirlooms, then turning around, handing you a cheap plastic tent and saying, "Look, I am enriching your life." That is exactly what the food industry is doing. They use steel roller mills to strip away the bran and the germ, robbing the grain of more than 20 natural nutrients that God placed inside the wheat kernel. Then they spray it with 4 or 5 cheap synthetic vitamins and call it enriched. One of those is synthetic folic acid, something the bodies of many Americans cannot metabolize properly, leading to a toxic buildup in the blood. They also add inorganic iron, which is incredibly difficult for the body to absorb and often triggers severe gut inflammation. The Bible warns us about hypocrites who look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead. Enriched flour is precisely that kind of hypocritical entity. It is pristine white and looks perfectly clean, but it is a nutritional corpse. When we reject the wholeness of the whole wheat grain, we are rejecting the wisdom of the Creator to chase after artificial chemicals. Our bodies were not designed to recognize these chemical fragments. They crave real life, the kind found only in intact, whole grains from Mother Earth. Why is it that in European countries like Italy, France, or Greece, people still eat bread every day as a sacred tradition, yet remain lean and healthy? Why is bread in America synonymous with obesity and disease? The answer lies in greed and legal loopholes. In America, the food industry operates on a single, ruthless principle: profit first, health last. Do you know about potassium bromate? It is a powerful bleaching and dough conditioning agent that makes bread look fluffier and whiter. It has been banned across Europe, China, and Canada because it is a potential carcinogen. Yet in America, it is still present in most cheap breads lining supermarket shelves. Or take azodicarbonamide, a chemical used to manufacture yoga mats and shoe soles, which is inexplicably allowed as a dough conditioner in American bread. We are eating things that belong strictly in chemical plants. In the story of Esau and Jacob, Esau sold his birthright merely for a bowl of red stew. The American people are repeating that exact mistake. We are trading away our health and our future generations for the sake of convenience and cheap, stark white loaves of bread. The difference between American and European bread isn't just about flavor. It is the difference between a system that views human beings merely as consumers and a system, however faintly it remains, that still respects the laws of nature. It is time we ask the question: why are we allowing these toxic substances to enter the temple of the Holy Spirit, our very bodies? In the darkest chapters of the book of Ezekiel, God gave the prophet a survival code. He commanded, "Take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt. Put them in a storage jar and use them to make bread for yourself." Ezekiel 4:9. For thousands of years, people read this merely as a recipe for scarcity during a siege. But modern nutritional science has had to tip its hat in awe to this formula. When you combine grains like wheat and millet with legumes like beans and lentils, a biological miracle occurs. You create a complete protein. This is a protein equivalent to beef or eggs, but entirely plant-based. God didn't just give Ezekiel a recipe to survive. He gave him a recipe to thrive right in the midst of adversity. Ezekiel bread contains the perfect balance of fiber, protein, and minerals, without the need for a single additive. This isn't a recipe with 37 unpronounceable ingredients. These are 6 gifts from the earth, combined in a golden ratio. When these ingredients are soaked and sprouted, their vitamin content skyrockets, and living enzymes are activated, transforming the loaf into a truly living entity. The prophet Ezekiel lived on this bread for 390 days under the most horrific pressures. This proves that when we eat the way God intended, our bodies possess extraordinary strength to weather any storm. True bread doesn't need to be enriched by man, because it was already enriched by the Creator Himself the moment the seed was sown. We are standing at a crossroads in the history of health. On one side is the broad path of industrial bread, which leads to inflammation, fatigue, and pharmaceutical dependency. On the other side is the narrow path of tradition, of sourdough, of ancient grains, and of patience. Returning to real bread is not just a dietary choice. It is an act of resistance against the deception of the modern food system. It is how we take back control of our temple. Picture Jesus on the night of the Last Supper. He took the bread, gave thanks, broke it, and said, "This is my body." That loaf was the culmination of sweat, tears, the patience of nature, and the labor of human hands. It contained no bleaching chemicals, no herbicides, and no high-fructose corn syrup. It was the purest thing chosen to represent the Holy One. When we knead the dough with our own hands, nurture a sourdough starter in our kitchens, and bake a genuine loaf of sourdough bread, we are practicing a ritual of life. The aroma of bread baking in the oven is the very fragrance of truth and gratitude. Do not fear bread. Fear what mankind has done to it. Seek out ancient grains, learn to befriend wild yeast, and break bread with a heart that respects the Creator's design. The staff of life is still there, waiting for you to pick it up and lean upon it. Bread is not the enemy. It is the greatest gift bestowed by nature, if we only know how to receive it in its authentic form. Let every bite of bread you eat become a prayer, a remembrance of our origins, and a commitment to a life overflowing with energy and true vitality. The journey to reclaim the truth about bread has only just begun. If you believe that food is medicine and want to join us in uncovering more health codes from the Bible, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this video to awaken those around you, and don't forget to ring the notification bell. See you in our next journey of discovering true life.